My name is Adrian Hollis, and until last Friday night, I believed the world was kinder to dreamers than cynics. I had to believe that, because for the last 6 years I have carried the same shimmering vision around inside my ribcage, nursing. It like an ember that refused to die even when the winds of practicality howled. I sketched it in the margins of meeting notes, whispered it to the ceiling at 3 a.m., and shaped it into long midnight emails addressed to myself. It was a plan for a company that could change how the fashion industry treated both women and the planet. A circular economy, zero-waste wardrobe subscription that let customers send garments back for repair or upcycle credit, every thread traceable, every worker paid fairly, every design built to last instead of to landfill. Called it Revolve, capital REV because I wanted the brand to echo revolution and renewal at once. Revolve also concealed a tiny tribute to my maiden name, Reyes. Because the older I get, the more I want pieces of my mother's bloodline to ride alongside my own ambitions. I had prototypes, supplier contracts tentatively inked, even a half-finished seed deck. I polished compulsively on plane rides for my day job as a retail systems analyst. All I lacked was the kind of capital injection that frees a concept from the PowerPoint graveyard and lets it stretch both feet onto the factory floor. Thought the first step toward that injection would be to speak my idea aloud, unapologetically, in front of people with power. And so when my husband, Elliot Hollis, MBA, venture capitalist, professional magnet for attention, invited me to join him at an investor brunch hosted at the ultramodern home of one of his partners overlooking Lake Washington, I said yes. The brunch was one of those Seattle spring affairs where the weather can't decide between golden optimism and icy relapse, so the hosts threw open glass walls to let in the possibility of sun, but positioned industrial heaters over the terrace in case of betrayal. Inside the house, floor-to-ceiling windows framed a gray-blue horizon, while below us, the lake frothed with sailboats waiting for wind. Everyone wore neutrals, cream linen blazers, charcoal knits. I wore the only bright piece in the room, a crimson wrap dress I'd bought secondhand and tailored myself. It made me feel like a flare gun, impossible to ignore. But I learned very quickly that attention is a double-edged gift. The idea of a 2-minute lightning pitch was Elliot's. He'd floated it in the car, tapping the steering wheel, in rhythm with some synth pop track on the radio. You've got the deck, you've got the data. These are my people, Aid. Watch them light up. You just need to hit them with the hook. 2 minutes, tops. Trust me. I trusted him. Or perhaps I trusted the version of him that existed before we got married, before his firm's Series D rocket. Ride transformed him into a man whose success cast everything around him into comparative shadow. I still loved him, that complicated, shape-shifting verb. But Friday would teach me that love and trust are not synonyms. The pitch came midway through dessert, an architectural cheesecake dome that looked too precise to eat. Conversation had drifted to sustainable verticals, the phrase repeated like a prayer bead among venture types trying to position themselves on the moral high ground. This was my opening. I stood, pressed a palm over the anxious flutter in my sternum, and began. You've all read the headlines, I said. Every second, the equivalent of a garbage truck's worth of clothing is burned or buried. The apparel industry pumps 10% of global carbon emissions into the sky, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. But fashion is also one of the most emotionally driven markets on Earth. If we can harness that emotion, we can rewrite the waste equation. I outlined Revolve's closed-loop system, smart labels embedded with NFC chips, return logistics partnerships with courier co-ops, a credit system that encouraged customers to trade garments in before quality declined. I quoted studies, referenced blockchain accountability, projected a break-even curve at 18 months. For one breathless pocket of time, I felt the room lean toward me, the way wheat leans into wind. Eyes glinted, notepads lifted. Even the host's spouse set down her champagne flute, eyebrows knitting in curiosity. That's when Elliot laughed, Not a polite chuckle or supportive nod. A laugh, sharp, disbelieving, a crack of thunder on a clear day. "Adrienne, sweetheart," he said, rising from his chair with the charisma of a TED speaker and the arrogance of an emperor. He clinked his spoon to a water glass. "Let's be real here. The subscription box graveyard is piled high. Wardrobe rental? Been done. Return logistics? A burning money pit. NFC labels? Fun gadget? Zero ROI. Investors, if you want to burn. Cash! Go camping and set fire to it yourselves." Laughter rippled around the table. Relieved, awkward, complicit. I remained standing, cheeks blazing hotter than the terrace heaters. His words tasted like rust in my mouth. I wanted to swallow them and spit diamonds, but humiliation paralyzed my tongue. Elliot draped an arm around my shoulders, theatrically, tender. "God, I love her ambition," he continued. "But this is brunch, darling. Let's not make it a funeral for everyone's portfolios." He sat. The conversation shifted without friction, like a train onto another track. Someone asked about AI and supply chain. Another joked about microbreweries for dogs. Plates were cleared. The moment passed, for everyone but me. I excused myself to the restroom, locked the door, and allowed the tears to come in soundless convulsions. I pressed fistfuls of tissue to my eyes until mascara streaked the sink. When I could breathe again, I lifted my phone. 34 unread Slack messages from work. An email labeled urgent from my project manager. I searched instead for the revolve deck in my Google Drive, opened it, and stared at slide 1. A single sentence in bold teal text. "Slow fashion shouldn't feel slow." I whispered the sentence, aloud like an oath, then shoved the phone back into my clutch and faced the mirror. My reflection looked older, fiercer. There's a kind of betrayal that functions like a kiln. It bakes the softness out of you, leaves you glazed and unbreakable. Returned to the table, sat beside my husband, and finished brunch in silence. When we left, he didn't even ask if I was okay. He was too busy trading contact cards with a fintech founder 2 Teslas away. That evening, while Elliot took a celebratory call on our balcony, I packed a weekender bag. In went my laptop, charger, and the mock-ups I'd printed on recycled cardstock. I booked a room at the Silverton Inn downtown, a boutique hotel with lichen green walls and fiber optic Wi-Fi. I texted my best friend and former coworker Noelle, now a UX designer at a sportswear company, and asked if she could meet in the morning for coffee. I typed, "Need advice, maybe illegal amounts of caffeine." She heart-reacted. Then I slid my wedding band off, placed it on Elliot's nightstand where he couldn't miss it, and walked out. Sunday morning smelled like espresso and rain. Seattle's skyline glimmered beyond the coffee shop's fogged windows, each tower a graphite, pencil thrust into mist. Noelle arrived wearing neon orange sneakers and an expression equal parts curiosity and concern. "You look like a spilled secret," she said, pulling me into a hug. I recounted the brunch fiasco, voice shaking only once when I repeated Elliot's words verbatim. Noelle listened, jaw tightening. When I finished, she smacked her palm on the bar table, rattling the cups. "Okay, first of all, what the actual hell? Second, you're pitching that deck this week. To who? An empty Starbucks?" "Not empty," she said, wagging her phone. "My office hosts Paper Trail Tuesdays, open mic for product ideas, 5-minute slots. If the panel likes you, they forward you to their venture arm. You have till Tuesday at 10 a.m. 48 hours, a universe's worth and a heartbeat. I spent Sunday night rewriting every slide, stripping jargon until the pitch read like a story instead of a spreadsheet. I annotated impact metrics in the speaker notes, downloaded market infographics, and cross-checked the supply chain data until numbers blurred. When exhaustion made paragraphs swim, I marched up and down the hotel stairwell reciting the speech. To the walls, refining cadence. Monday, I visited a fabric recycling facility in Renton to shoot B-roll footage with my phone. A mountain of shredded denim, conveyor belts spooling threads into new spools. The plant manager, a woman named Sandra with calloused hands and opera-gentle voice, agreed to let Revolve use the footage if the startup reached launch. I promised her jobs. That night, Noelle stopped by with a still-warm pizza and 2 energy drinks. We rehearsed in front of the hotel TV. She timed me, gave pointers on pause, breath, emphasis. At 2:17 a.m., I collapsed, dreamless. Tuesday dawned violet and gold, one of those rare Pacific Northwest mornings when clouds part like theater. Curtains. I wore tailored black trousers and a slate blouse borrowed from Noelle's closet. As I waited in the lobby of Brixton Athletics headquarters, a labyrinth of timber beams, living plant walls, and bicycle art, I pressed a hand to my sternum. The flutter was still there, but it had matured into something wilder than fear. Anticipation. The paper trail stage was a raised platform in an atrium lined with glass offices. 5 judges sat in Eames chairs, a supply chain VP, 2 product managers, a brand strategist, and, my lungs froze, the CFO of Brixton Ventures. A legend known for funding only 1% of the pitches he saw. 7 other hopefuls presented before me. A biodegradable yoga mat, a smart water bottle, an app to track personal carbon footprints. Then the host called my name. I breathed once, stepped forward, and began. This time, the pitch lived in my veins. I spoke about my grandmother who darned socks into longevity, about the euphoria of wearing something that felt both new and responsible. I described Revolve's warehouse model, the credit incentives, the community story stitched into each QR-linked tag. I closed with a single photograph, a landfill horizon smoldering under sunset, captioned, "We can turn this back into thread." Silence stretched long enough for me to count my heartbeats. Then the CFO nodded, clicked his pen, and said, "Tell me more about your retention projections." Q&A unfolded like chess. I parried questions on logistics cost with data, countered skepticism about user churn with survey heat maps, laid out a path to net positive by year 2. When the bell rang to signal my time, I barely heard it over the roar in my head that sounded suspiciously like hope. The panel huddled. The host studied her tablet. Finally, she returned to the mic. "Congratulations, Adrienne Hollis. Revolve is moving to venture review." Applause crushed the air from my lungs. I bowed, disbelieving, and found Noelle in the back, fist pumped skyward. My cheeks hurt from smiling. Outside, my phone vibrated. Elliot. I let it go to voicemail. Heart pounding, not from fear, but from clarity. I had a meeting with Brixton Ventures on Friday, exactly 1 week after brunch. Wednesday and Thursday unfolded as a blur of spreadsheets, attorney calls, and supply chain feasibility checks. The Brixton meeting required a 40-page dossier. I barely slept, surviving on oatmeal packets and adrenaline. Noelle crashed in my hotel room, editing render files, peppering me with practice objections. At dawn on Friday, I ironed my crimson dress, the same one I wore to brunch, a talisman reclaimed. I walked the 8 blocks to Brixton's glass tower, feeling like my bones were made of quartz. In the elevator, my phone buzzed again. Elliot. I stared at his name. 13 missed calls. A text preview materialized. "We need to talk about your meeting today." My stomach twisted, but up I went to floor 27. The reception area smelled of cedar and lemon. A digital sign invited, "Welcome Revolve." An assistant escorted me to a conference room with a wall-size screen displaying my logo. "Ms. Hollis, the board will join shortly," she said. I arranged my sample fabrics on the table, straightened my notes, and exhaled through pursed lips to slow my pulse. The door opened. Footsteps. I turned to greet the board, and my breath caught. Elliot stood among them, portfolio tucked under his arm, wearing the same grin he'd worn at our wedding. When the minister pronounced us, my husband, the man who had publicly ridiculed my vision, was about to sit on the venture panel deciding its fate. The room shivered around me like a shaken snow globe. Elliot's eyes found mine, and I saw something unfamiliar, contrition mixed with calculation. He opened his mouth to speak, but before a word emerged, the CFO cleared his throat. "Mr. Hollis is joining as an external advisor on sustainable retail," he announced. "I believe you two are acquainted." My lips parted, the edges of my vision pinwheeled. Was this sabotage or salvation? Had Elliot come to undermine me? Again? Or to claim my triumph? The assistant dimmed the lights. The screen pulsed awake. "Ms. Hollis," the CFO said, "you may begin." I faced my husband, then the gathered investors, heart hammering like mallets on cathedral bells. I clicked to slide 1, the teal sentence shining like prophecy. "Slow fashion shouldn't feel slow." My voice steadied. "Thank you for having me. Today, I'll show you why Revolve will redefine value for an entire generation of consumers." But inside, questions screamed. How had Elliot muscled into this meeting? Had he seen the tidal wave rising and decided to surf it? Would the board trust a founder whose own spouse once mocked her? Was I about to watch my dream slip away just when it finally broke the surface? The laser pointer trembled in my grip. I advanced to slide 2. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The conference room lights dimmed to a muted dusk, and the wall-sized display washed the tabletop in teal glow. I steadied the laser pointer between thumb and forefinger, willing my pulse to level out, and directed the crimson dot to the heart of slide 2, a flowchart mapping Revolve's product journey from design sketch to regenerated fiber. No one spoke. The hush felt viscous, as though the air itself had thickened to hold every word I uttered. The board members watched, pens poised. Elliot, 2 seats left of the CFO, leaned forward with the polite half-smile he reserved for strangers on airplanes, strangers he might decide to invest in, or demolish, depending on how interesting their conversation became. "Let's start with life cycle," I said, guiding them from concept to consumer and back again. By embedding NFC tags at the cut-and-sew stage, we track the garment's ownership curve, wear frequency, and eventual return. Each loop through Revolve's refurb line generates a new data tranche we feed back into design, tightening waste margins with every cycle. I toggled to the next slide. Market segmentation metrics bloomed in gradient rings. Our target demographic is the responsible indulgent, millennials and Gen Z who crave novelty but demand accountability. They'll pay a subscription premium if the platform offers 3 pillars: verified ethics, personal style curation, and community status. A hand rose. Hannah Shee, Brixton's supply chain VP. Her reputation for due diligence was legend. "How do you intend to enforce supply transparency across multiple Tier 2 and Tier 3 vendors?" I clicked to a nested hierarchy. Diagram. "We don't onboard any mill or dye house without blockchain-linked compliance audits. Every shipment smart contracts to the previous batch ID. Deviation flags freeze payment until variance is resolved. We're not just selling clothes, we're selling receipts." Murmurs of approval. Even the pen clickers paused. Elliot lifted his chin. "Bold stance," he said. "But blockchain doesn't wash fabric or stitch seams. What's your contingency? If a vendor in, say, Ho Chi Minh City falsifies data at the source?" The challenge hung between us like a gauntlet. In my gut, anger flickered. He had ridiculed the concept a week ago, yet now he performed the rigorous ally. I inhaled. "You're correct. Blockchain only reports what's fed. That's why Revolve funds third-party lab testing on random sample lots, dyes, fibers, even wastewater. If any sample fails, we publish the breach, reroute purchase orders, and open source. The finding: transparency is non-negotiable. Elliot opened his mouth again, but the CFO, Devin Kale, silver-templed and eagle-eyed, raised a finger. Let's discuss scalability after the financials. Ms. Hollis, proceed. Financials. The meat. I advanced to the pro forma models, columns of numbers distilled from 4 months of late-night spreadsheet sprints. Subscription revenue ramped across 36 months. Refurbishment labor costs deflated as automation increased. Attrition, curves flattened by a loyalty credit slope. My voice moved through the figures like a violin bow, deliberate, reverent. When I reached EBIT break-even at month 18, I felt the room exhale. A subtle shift. Shoulders eased, pens dropped. Into holders. Even Hannah scribbled a note that looked suspiciously like a margin smile. I clicked to the final slide. A photograph of a little girl in a patched denim jacket, holding a cardboard sign that read, Future Fashion CEO. The caption beneath, Culture shifts when we sow new stories. I lowered the pointer. I'm asking for $3.2 million in seed capital, I said, in exchange for 11% equity, with an employee option pool of 15%. But I'm also inviting you to build a blueprint. Clothing touches every human life. If we can loop one basic human need into circularity, imagine the momentum for the rest of the market. Silence settled once more, but it was heavier now, laden with possibility. Devin folded his hands on the table. Thank you, Ms. Hollis. Please step outside while we deliberate. I gathered my laptop, sample swatches, and, because I refused to cede territory, my dignity. As I crossed the threshold, Elliot's voice followed. Excellent presentation. The words were butter smooth, but a kernel of something, pride, regret, ambition, crackled beneath. The assistant guided me to a lounge with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Ferries carved white wakes across pewter water. I stood at the glass and tried to slow my breathing. Had I done enough? Could one flawless deck outweigh a spouse's public scorn? Could I compete with his network if he decided to pivot from antagonist to contender? Minutes felt elastic. I scrolled through Slack notifications, team queries, manufacturing updates. A new message pinged from Noelle. Any news? Fingernails drummed the phone case bezel. Not yet, I typed. The elevator dinged. I spun, half expecting a verdict, but it was Elliot, tie loosened, apology painted across his features. He walked toward Da. Me, hands pocketed, posture uncharacteristically tentative. Aid, he began. I raised a palm. Whatever you've prepared to say, save it. This isn't the place. It is. His voice hushed. He glanced back to ensure the receptionist couldn't hear. I owe you an explanation. You owe me respect. The words cracked like ice sheets splitting. A week ago, you mocked me in front of investors. Today, you're on the panel. Are you here to kneecap Revolve again, or to buy yourself a seat at the table? He swallowed. I was wrong at brunch. I underestimated you, and the market. The immediate traction you've shown. Investors are buzzing. Kale reached out Monday, asked if I'd consult. I disclosed our relationship, full transparency. Lucky. Kale? I muttered. I'm not here to sabotage you. Elliot's jaw flexed. I want in, as a strategic advisor, not as your husband. I know the VC labyrinth. I can steer Revolve through follow-on rounds. Let me help. The audacity. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to rage. You laughed at my funeral, I said. Now you're offering flowers? He winced. I deserved that. But hear me out. If I hadn't joked, you might never have chased paper trail. Abuse. As motivation? I spat. That's a thesis you could keynote at a psychopath's conference. Elliot's shoulders sagged. Aid, I love you. I made a catastrophic mistake. Give me a chance to repair it, publicly. In my chest, a war raged, the residual tenderness of 8 shared years versus the sovereignty of my ambition. Before I could answer, the assistant reappeared. Ms. Hollis, the board is ready. I followed her down the corridor, not daring to glance back. Inside the conference room, the directors' faces were inscrutable. Devon spoke first. Thank you for your patience. We are unanimously impressed by Revolve's model. Relief flooded me, but he held up a hand. However, given the capital intensity of reverse logistics and repair infrastructure, we require seasoned operational guidance. We're prepared to meet your valuation, contingent upon an advisory board seat for a partner with proven expertise in consumer goods scaling. I knew the name before he said it. Mr. Elliot Hollis is our suggested advisor. The room tilted. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. A conditional yes, hinged on the man who had belittled me. Devon continued, but the rest of his words were muffled by the surge of blood behind my eardrums. 6-month probationary term, veto power on strategic pivots, standard carve-outs for conflict of interest. I licked my lips. And if I refuse? Devon clasped his hands. We'd still consider investment, but at adjusted terms. Significantly. Reduced valuation and staggered disbursements upon proof of concept. Risk escalates without advisory oversight. A trap designed with velvet ropes. Accept Elliot, maintain equity, refuse him, surrender leverage. I inhaled. May I have until tomorrow morning to decide? Of course, 9 a.m. Pacific. I thanked them, shook hands with perfunctory politeness, and left clutching a folder of draft term sheets that felt heavier than concrete. Elliot waited by the lounge window. Hope flickered in his eyes until he registered my expression, a fractured mosaic of triumph and fury. We'll talk later, I said, brushing past. He trailed behind me toward the elevators. Adrienne. The doors slid open. I stepped in, turned, and met his gaze. You have until tonight to convince me you're not a liability, I said. After that, I sign with or without you. The doors closed on his stricken face. Rain sheeted the sidewalk outside Brixton Tower. I strode into it, letting droplets stitch cold constellations across my scalp. My phone buzzed, a notification from my personal email. Subject, urgent, Renton facility incident. Pulse spiking, I ducked beneath an awning and opened the message. Adrienne, emergency shutdown at the recycle line. Conveyor failed, minor fire. Contained but damages extensive. Insurance wants your statement. Call ASAP. Sandra, another buzz. Photos loading, melted plastic frames, scorched denim heaps, firefighters hosing smoldering bales. My breath faltered. Without that facility, Revolve's pilot run couldn't launch. Every prototype, every life cycle loop hinged on their fibers. That's when I noticed the timestamp, 1407. The facility wasn't due to operate that line until 18 SIG. Someone had triggered production early, a final vibration, voicemail transcription from an unknown number. If you want your dream intact, bring me onto that board by 9 a.m. Otherwise, watch it burn. My hand trembled so violently the phone nearly slipped. Traffic hissed by, oblivious. Clouds bruised the sky. I stared at the message until the words seared my vision. Watch it burn. A chill rippled through marrow. Was this Elliot? A rival? Someone? Inside Brixton? I spun 100 theories, each darker than the last. I took one step into the rain, then another, ears roaring with a single deafening question. Who had sabotaged my lifeline, and how far were they willing to go? The rainfall intensified as if some celestial valve had been flung open to drown indecision out of the city. Silverton Inn's awning could no longer shield my thoughts, or my phone, from the downpour, so I hailed the first bronze and white cab on Stewart Street and slid into its vinyl back seat. To Renton Recycling, Lakeside Yard, I told the driver, voice taut. He nodded, merging into traffic while windshield wipers slapped fury against the storm. As skyscrapers receded, Autopilot dread yielded to methodical crisis triage. I phoned Noelle on speaker. Saw the news, she said without greeting. Local. Feed showed smoke plumes. Are you okay? Physically. But the Renton line's down. Fire at 1400 hours. Before scheduled run. That's 4 hours early. Arson? Or sabotage? I got a voicemail just after incident, threatening more unless I accept an advisory edition. Could be Elliot or someone using his leverage. Silence crackled like static. Elliot wouldn't torch a plant, she said at last. He's reckless, not criminal. I can't afford romantic blind spots. Meet me at Lakeside. Bring a blank chain of custody form and your DSLR. We document everything. On my way, she said. Call ended. The cab swerved onto I-5, tail lights smeared red through rain. My mind sprinted through contingency architecture. Without Renton, I'd need alternate recycling capacity, maybe the Tacoma pilot plant. But contracts were unsigned, and transport costs would gouge cash flow. I opened my laptop, hotspot tethered to a flickering signal, and fired emails to the Tacoma plant manager, to an insurance adjuster, to my attorney cousin in Spokane. Fingers. Drummed so fast keys blurred. Each outgoing message felt like a sandbag against a flood. We arrived 40 minutes later. Lakeside Yard's gated entrance was barricaded by a fire engine and a wrecker truck. Smoke still ribboned from the corrugated metal roof, though the worst flames were out. Sandra met me in a neon yellow safety vest, helmet tucked under one arm. Good timing, she said, voice coarse from smoke. Fire marshal just cleared temporary access, but nothing inside gets moved till they finish investigation. Noelle's Prius rolled up behind the cab. She hopped out with camera and waterproof shroud. I marched toward the yawning warehouse door. Charred odor hit like a punch. Inside, the main conveyor belt hung limp, melted sections sagging onto blackened floor. Sprinklers dripped overhead. We traced the ignition to motor 6, Sandra said, pointing a flashlight. It overheated, but protocols require manual activation. Someone must have overridden the timer. Noelle snapped photos. The scorched motor casing, the breaker panel with its safety seal sliced clean. Any CCTV? I asked. Cameras went offline exactly 13:59. Power spike fried feeds. Too convenient. I knelt by the breaker panel, studying the cut plastic sheath. The slice was smooth. A serrated knife would leave frays. Professional. Noelle whispered, "Check this." She zoomed on a small metallic shard embedded in burn residue, a sliver of copper wire, ends crimped into a wireless transmitter casing half melted. Remote detonator? She guessed. My stomach rollicked. If someone infiltrated to plant a transmitter, this was premeditated far beyond a threat. Outside, thunder thumped. I turned to Sandra. Fire marshal's office will need this evidence bagged. I'll flag it, she said, summoning an aide. Amid the turmoil, my phone buzzed, blocked number again. Against instinct, I answered. Decision deadlines. Moved up, a voice distorted by modulation announced. Midnight tonight. Pick the advisor or pick the ashes. Line went dead. 12 hours. I relayed the call on speaker. Sandra's eyes hardened. We'll sweep every inch for more devices, but you need to think bigger. Who gains from slowing your launch? Competitors? Fast fashion giants threatened by circular runway, Noelle mused. But sabotage? Risk inside Seattle eco-scene is low. They usually undermine with PR, not arson. I glanced at Sandra. Anyone disgruntled here? She shook her head. We pay union scale. Staff turnover minimal. A low beeping drew my gaze to the far end. A forklift edging through puddles, operator waving. Left side walls intact, he shouted. But the QR tag inventories waterlogged. The tags, crucial to traceability. I rushed over. Pallets of NFC labels sat under plastic sheeting, but water seeped through. I peeled a tag. its circuitry squelched between fingers. 70% scrap by eye. Ice threaded my veins. Tag replacement lead time was 6 weeks. Unacceptable. Noelle nudged me. Tacoma can handle reprint, maybe. Let's call. We stepped into Sandra's office trailer for respite. I dialed Tacoma Regan Print. Night supervisor answered groggy. They could slot a rush job, but only if we supplied blank polymer stock and paid triple rate. Distribution to Seattle by Friday, cutting it razor close to Brixton's final sign-off. I agreed, secured invoice, forwarded purchase order to my dwindling savings account. Clock, 1742. Rain eased outside, evening light bruised purple over the lake. Sandra returned with an evidence bag, the copper shard sealed. Marshall's coordinating with ATF for analysis, she said. Could be defined as industrial terrorism. Industrial terrorism. The phrase rang like a verdict. I slumped into a swivel chair, fatigue crashing atop adrenaline. 12 hours to choose. Accept Elliot, placate the extortionist, or defy and risk fresh catastrophe. But if Elliot wasn't behind, this bargaining would embolden the real culprit. Noelle placed a hand on my shoulder. We need intel. If the threats bluff, call it. If not, trap them. How? Leverage digital forensics, she said. Number was masked, but we can route call logs to my friend at a telecom security startup. They decode spoof origins. Do. It, I whispered. She fired a message chain, attached audio file. Meanwhile, I drafted a press statement. Preliminary findings indicate mechanical failure under investigation. We remain committed to worker safety and environmental responsibility. Hesitated. Going public might expose vulnerability. But silence invites rumors. I scheduled the release for dawn. Sandra brewed coffee strong enough to melt steel. Steam fogged the trailer windows. She spoke low. I built this line with grant money and elbow grease. Whoever torched it dishonors. Every worker busting seems to remake the world. Find them. I will, I promised, voice hoarse. 2,000 hours. The rain stopped, leaving asphalt slick as obsidian. We locked the site, leaving marshals to guard smoldering debris. Noelle and I drove north on an almost empty I-5. She kept one earbud in, monitoring her friend's trace. City lights glittered, like spilled solder across the sound. My phone buzzed. Elliot, I answered with curt inhale. I saw news alerts, he said. Are you safe? No thanks to you. Aid, I would never. His voice cracked. I'm on your side. I can't sift truth from performance. Someone threatened more if you're not on Revolve's board. He swore softly. Give me location, I'm coming to you. Not happening. I glanced at Noelle. She shook head. If you truly want to help, send me your device ID list. Phones, tablets, anything. I'll vet alibis. Done. But please, meet me. I hired a private security firm tonight. They can guard Renton. Text me the contract. Goodbye. Click, Noelle arched a brow. He sounds genuinely freaked. Guilt motivation can mimic fear, I said. Dashboard clock, 20:37. Noelle's phone pinged. She skimmed message. Trace. Completed. Spoof cascaded through European servers, but root IP is Bellevue, Hollis Roth Venture Partners offices. The breath whooshed from my lungs. Elliot's firm. Not conclusive of him. Could be partner. But correlation stung. Noelle continued. Could be inside op. Someone with server access masked call. Let's confront them. We need proof. A sting. An idea sparked, incandescent. Tomorrow 9 a.m., I must confirm board seat. Tonight, we invite them to reveal themselves. Noelle focused on the road. Explain. Send a confidential email blast to the board, blind copying, Elliot's partners, announcing that I'll decline advisory seat. Leak hint that Renton downtime is manageable, and launch date stands. If saboteur monitors comms, they'll escalate. Risky, she said. What if escalation targets people? We'll stage at a decoy site, the downtown warehouse still. Under renovation. Set security ambush. She nodded slowly. I'll loop Sandra. She can arrange dummy machinery. Adrenaline purged fatigue. My plan coalesced. Dangle Revolve's resilience as bait. Catch whoever sought to break it. 2300 hours. Downtown warehouse, an old hosiery factory with brick walls scalloped in graffiti. Our team, 3 security contractors Elliot hired, I begrudge the irony, plus Noelle's friend Luis from Telecom and 2 off-duty fire marshals, wired motion sensors, acoustic alarms, and a hidden camera lattice weaving through rafters. Drafted the bait email, subject, advisory seat decision, confidential board members. After careful consideration, I will not accept the external advisory nomination. Revolve will proceed per our original cap table. Renton line incident is under control. Contingency operations confirm pilot launch on schedule. Respectfully, Adrienne, I scheduled send for 2350. Every recipient list triple-checked, blind copied. Addresses loaded. At 2355, security killed interior lights. Only emergency exit signs glowed faint exit green. Rain tapped broken panes like fingernails. We waited. Seconds ticked to minutes. I crouched behind a stack of unused garment racks, headset feeding live camera feeds to my tablet. Noelle knelt beside me, DSL ready to capture. 14. Motion sensor ping. North service door. Feed switched, silhouette of tall figure in hooded. Jacket, flashlight beam slicing dark. Second shape followed, carrying duffel. Security signaled silent convergence, flanking catwalk. I zoomed lens. The second figure stopped, opened duffel, revealing red canisters, wiring coils. Heart slammed. They were planting more transmitters or explosives. First figure removed hood, not Elliot. A younger man, clean-shaven, glasses glinting, recognized from brunch, Simon Fung, junior associate at Hollis Roth. He'd raved about growth hacking B2B SaaS between Bellini's live view chart into memory. Simon knelt, attaching device to electrical junction box. Security pounced, floodlights blazed. Shouts, scuffle, figures restrained. Fire marshals swept canisters. Industrial thermite charges. I exhaled raggedly. Thermite could cut steel like butter. They meant to raise the warehouse. Police arrived within minutes, responding to pre-registered trap call. Simon and accomplice, another HR associate, were cuffed, rights read. I stepped from shadows, tablet clenched. Simon's gaze darted to me, panic dilating pupils. We were following orders, he blurted. Whose? An officer demanded. Simon swallowed, jaw tremoring. Mr. Roth, said sink her or buy her. Roth, Elliot's senior partner, known shark. My blood iced. If Roth orchestrated sabotage to strong-arm Revolve's valuation or bolster Elliot's board bid, lines between personal and professional betrayal blurred to oblivion. Police escorted them out. Noelle squeezed my hand. Sirens faded. I sank onto cold concrete. Midnight passed, 0047 brandished on phone. My email decision unsent but moot. Truth now radioactive. I needed to confront Elliot, expose Roth, and salvage Brixton's trust before 9 a.m. heart pounding. I dialed Elliot. He answered on first ring, voice groggy. Adrienne, your associates are in custody. Sabotage linked to Roth. Silence, heavy, stunned gasp. I need you at the downtown warehouse now, I said. And you'd better come armed with the truth, because at dawn, everything we built goes on trial. I ended call, throat dry. The looming sunrise wasn't just a deadline. It was judgment hour, on Elliot, on Revolve, on whether love could survive scorched earth. The silence after I hung up lingered like the lingering smell of hot metal. I pressed my palm against the concrete floor to ground myself. It felt cool, real, undeniable, unlike the swirl of suspicions and half-formed accusations spinning in my head. Around me, the security team packed away restraining ties and retrieved the confiscated thermite charges, tagging each for evidence. Red and blue lights from a lingering patrol car pulsed through the factory windows, painting jagged shadows that crawled over the decommissioned sewing machines stacked in rows like spectral onlookers. Noelle crouched beside me. "They'll be booking Simon at the downtown precinct," she said quietly. "We can ask for a statement copy, but it'll take a few hours." Hours I didn't have. 9 a.m. Pacific, barely 8 hours away, was etched into my brain like a countdown etched into ice. "I need to know everything before the board meets," I said, standing and brushing grit from my trousers. "If Roth ordered this, we present. Proof. If Elliot's complicit, I walk away." The words scratched raw on my throat, but I meant them. Noelle touched my arm. "You sure you want him coming here?" Her eyes, dark coffee under the fluorescence, registered concern. "If he's innocent," I said, "he deserves the chance to defend himself. And if he's lying, I want to see the lie in his face." Air 134. Elliot arrived faster than traffic should have allowed, his black Audi fishtailing slightly on the slick cobblestones. He climbed out, rain-beaded hair plastered to his forehead, and hesitated when he saw the police tape. I watched. From the loading dock steps, arms folded, the wind whipping my crimson dress against my knees. He ducked under the tape and up the concrete stairs, stopping 6 feet away as if an invisible cord yanked him short. "Adrian!" His voice cracked, exhaustion woven through the syllables. "Tell me what happened." I inclined my head toward the warehouse interior, where crime scene techs dusted for prints. "Thermite charges, Elliot. Your junior associates tried to turn this place into molten slag. Simon named Roth." Shock widened his pupils. "Roth?" He raked a hand through wet hair. "My God, he's in Argentina this week. Why would he?" His sentence evaporated into the damp air. I stepped closer, tasting copper, fury. Because sabotage drops my valuation. Because forcing me to accept your guidance gives your firm control. Because power is sport to men like him, and lately to you. He shook his head vehemently. "No, I told Roth about your venture, but only the basics. I never—" He paused, as though rewinding. "Simon said Roth gave the order? That makes no sense. Unless—" He trailed off. "Unless Roth thought I wanted this." Noelle emerged behind me, tablet in hand. "We have the wire trace. The threatening calls originated from Hollis Roth's Bellevue server cluster. That's not coincidence." Elliot swallowed, throat bobbing. "The firm's VoIP architecture uses dynamic proxies. Roth's personal IT admin controls the keys. If he spoofed our nodes, he could hide in plain sight." His gaze darted between us. "Adrian, you must know. I never authorized any attack. This—" He gestured at the police line. "This is monstrous." Pain flickered behind his eyes. Real, or expertly performed? I couldn't tell. For 8 years I'd trusted that gaze to decode his honesty. Tonight it felt like staring into a theater spotlight. Bright, blinding, and impossible to parse. I exhaled slowly. "Prove it." I handed him Noelle's tablet displaying the call log, the trace map, the voicemail audio clip. "Find the trail. Expose Roth before dawn. If you can't, the board sees this evidence and draws its own conclusions, including your involvement." He accepted the device with trembling hands. "I'll get into the firm's internal logs," he said. "My access level is high enough to pull VoIP event histories, even remote." He tapped the screen, already dissecting routes. I turned to Noelle. "We need eyes in 2 places," I said. "One team here, cataloging every piece of evidence. One at Brixton's Tower by 06 to prepare the boardroom with exhibits." A sharp nod. She began delegating tasks to security. 02:15. Elliot hunched over, a folding table beneath a hanging bulb, laptop balanced on knees, fingers dancing over keys. Sweat beaded at his hairline despite the cold. I watched from a distance, half expecting the screen to erupt into flames, taking my certainty with it. Minutes dragged, punctuated by the occasional shutter click from Noelle's camera and bursts of police radio chatter. Finally, Elliot exhaled, a sound like metal bending. Found something. He beckoned. On his screen, a time-stamped log, an outbound SIP call at 14:01 routed through Bellevue, account ID flagged under a generic admin, alias. The alias cross-referenced to a private VPN endpoint labeled Santiago Roth. Another line, a scheduled cron job dispatching encrypted audio files to a Colombian cloud bucket. Elliot looked up. Roth's IT admin, Javier Munoz, built him a covert tunnel for personal communications. The threat calls piggybacked that tunnel. Timestamp matches your voicemail. And here, he pulled another window. Simon's Wi-Fi badge pinged the Bellevue office at 13:20 even though he'd requested remote work. Roth sent him a Slack message at 12:57. Project Prometheus active. Collect packages and proceed to address. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Prometheus. That's Roth code for corporate takeovers. My stomach churned. We need that Slack transcript. Already downloading. We can forward to SPD detectives. And Brixton Legal. He paused, meeting my gaze. Adrian, I swear I didn't know. The apology hovered between us. At that moment, I believed him, partially. Or maybe exhaustion dulled my suspicion. Keep pulling data, I said, and draft an affidavit swearing you'll testify. 03:50. The city's east horizon glowed pale lavender, stars extinguishing as though someone dimmed the universe. We loaded digital files onto 3 encrypted thumb drives, one for police, one for Brixton's attorney, one for my counsel. I glanced at Elliot. His eyes were red-rimmed, tie long discarded, hair a mess only half caused by rain. He looked more human than I'd seen in months. We should go, I said. They'll open the building by 6. He nodded, unplugging his laptop. On our way out, Noelle handed me a steaming cup of gas station coffee. In case adrenaline quits. She squeezed my shoulder. You got this. Not sure I even know what this is anymore. My laugh sounded brittle. But thank you. Eero 440. Parking garage beneath Brixton Tower smelled of ozone and rubber. We took a freight elevator to the 27th floor, Elliot holding a banker's box filled with evidence printouts, me with swatches, revised valuation tables, and 24 hours of trauma cinched behind my shoulders. The atrium lights were dimmed to night mode. Cleaning crews buffed terrazzo floors. I ducked into the boardroom and began arranging items. Thermite canister photos, call trace diagrams, Slack transcripts. Each piece a jigsaw tile of malevolence. Elliot stood near the windows, Seattle's skyline reflected in the glass behind him like a second, inverted world. Devin will flip when he sees this, he muttered. Let's hope he flips in the right direction. I set the final printout, a screenshot, of Simon's message reading Prometheus deployed. Then I sat, hands clasped around the coffee cup for warmth. 5:22. A soft knock. Hannah, Brixton's supply chain VP, stepped in, hair pulled into a neat braid, dark circles under her eyes. Security called. They said you requested early access. Her gaze flicked to the evidence wall and widened. I briefed her in a swift 2-minute summary. By the end, her jaw was clenched tight enough to crack stone. You're putting this in front of the full board? She asked. At 9. I nodded. And SPD will be here to corroborate at 09:15. She released a slow breath. We stand by founders who protect workers and community. I'm in your corner. She tapped her smartwatch. I'll loop legal, compliance, comms. this hits the press, we need unified posture. Wave of gratitude washed over me. Thank you, Hannah. Truly. 0610. Lobby monitors flashed breaking news ticker. Renton textile fire under investigation. Local startup Revolve affected. A leaked photo of the charred conveyor hovered beside anchor text. My press statement, scheduled for dawn, was already quoted. Noel texted. Statement circulating. Narrative favorable. Fire marshal calling sabotage. I responded. Keep monitoring socials. 7:03. Devin Cale strode in, silver hair immaculate, followed by two other directors. His gaze swept the room, pausing on Elliot, then on the evidence display. Ms. Hollis, Mr. Hollis, he greeted neutrally. I trust there's a compelling reason for this unorthodox setup? You'll find it compelling indeed, I said, voice steel flat. May we begin the preliminary review now? I prefer you absorb the materials before the whole board arrives. Devin exchanged glances with his colleagues, then opened the binder I handed him. Silence thickened as pages turned. He stopped at the Slack transcript, brow furrowing. Prometheus, he murmured. So that's what Roth's playing at. He looked up, expression hard. We'll need outside counsel. But first, Adrian, do you still intend to decline the advisory seat? My pulse battered my ribs. I intend to protect my company from anyone who uses coercion as leverage. Devin nodded slowly. Understood. He gestured to the screen. At 9, present everything. Follow with your original deck. If we proceed on your terms. Relief fluttered like wings in my chest. Not victory, but possibility. 8:47. The boardroom filled. Chairs scraped. Muted conversations hummed. Cameras for remote directors flickered to life. Faces in miniature windows. A legal rep sat at the far end, laptop open. Hannah dimmed lights. I stepped to the podium. I could feel every micro tremor in my calves, but inside my chest, tenacious calm took root. Good morning, I began, voice carrying. Before we discuss Revolve's strategic partnership, I must disclose a sequence of events that began 20 hours ago. Slide 1. CCTV still of Simon carrying the duffel. Gasps rippled. Slide 2. Thermite charges. Slide 3. Call trace graphic. I narrated each revelation, letting evidence speak. When I finished, you could have heard a drop of synthetic fiber on the carpet. Devin leaned forward. Ms. Hollis, thank you. Our immediate priority is safety and justice. We will cooperate with law enforcement. As for your proposal, he glanced around the table, I move we vote to approve the original seed investment, with revised terms removing external advisory requirement. Murmurs of assent. But before any formal vote, the doors flew open. A woman in a charcoal skirt suit strode in, flanked by 2 security officers. Her ID badge read, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Apologies for the interruption, she said crisply. I'm Special Agent Marquez. We have a warrant to seize electronic records related to an interstate sabotage conspiracy. Shock rippled anew. Devin stood, palms up. Agent, we've just been discussing. Marquez held a folder. We have reason to believe one Elliot Hollis may possess pertinent communications. Mr. Hollis, please accompany us. Gasps. I froze. Elliot's face drained of color. Agent. Elliot's been helping expose. I started. She cut me off politely. We're aware. He's not under arrest, but we require a formal statement and his devices immediately. Elliot met my gaze, fear, and resignation swirling. I'll cooperate, he whispered, then followed agents out. The boardroom door closed. A nervous buzz replaced speechlessness. Devin cleared his throat. The vote will proceed pending further developments. Ms. Hollis, are you comfortable continuing? I swallowed, tasting rust. Yes, let's move forward. I reached for the clicker, but my hand shook so violently I set it down. Somewhere inside me, a voice whispered, "Hold, be unwavering." I straightened my spine. A director near the end raised her hand. "Before we proceed," she said, "I'd like clarity on contingency plans if Mr. Hollis is implicated. Does Revolve possess independent capital management expertise?" I smiled, small, but genuine. "Yes," I answered, "and I've brought that plan today." I advanced to a slide labeled Expertise Matrix, but the projector flickered, screen sputtering static. A system alert flashed. Source signal interrupted, then every light in. The boardroom cut out, plunging us into darkness as an alarm began to blare in the hallway. Static crackled through the emergency speakers, followed by a mechanical voice repeating, "Building lockdown initiated. Please remain calm and await instructions." Red strobes lit the corridor, painting the glass walls in bloody pulses. "The board," murmured, a collective inhale that sounded like a single drawn breath. My heart hammered so loud it felt seismic. Devon's silhouette rose against the emergency lights. "Everyone stay seated," he commanded, voice gravel steady. "This may be a false alarm, but protocol requires shelter in place until system reset or evacuation order." I forced myself to breathe evenly, scanning the pitch-dark corners. Outside the windows, dawn had barely kissed the skyline. The city looked like a dimmed circuit board. My thoughts ricocheted. Was this another sabotage effort? Simon and his accomplice were in custody, unless Roth had more pawns. Power returned in a flicker. Overhead, LEDs humming back to life. The projector rebooted, bathing the room in white light. Relief sighed across the table. Until the screen displayed, not my slide, but an image of a smoldering textile heap overlaid with crimson text. "Fashions burn. Legacies too." Gasps, chairs scraping. Someone cursed beneath their breath. I lunged for the laptop, fingers flying across keyboard shortcuts to retake control. But the HDMI feed now ignored my machine. A remote source overrode it. Noelle, seated at the back, whipped out her phone, trying to trace the feed. Devon turned toward the tech assistant by the door. "Cut the output, now." But before the assistant could reach the rack, the feed switched to a looping video, a drone shot of Renton's warehouse roof still steaming, spliced with blueprints of Brixton Tower. Then a countdown timer, 0010. Ororo 9. Instinct snatched my voice. "Everyone out!" Chairs toppled as bodies surged for exits. My mind screamed numbers, thermites burn temperature, blast radius if charges mirrored Renton. 9 seconds left. We spilled into the hallway, sprinted past frosted glass offices. At 6 seconds, alarms howled anew, this time real, deeper, an air raid klaxon. The building's PA announced, "Evacuate immediately, avoid elevators, use stairwells." As if commanded, sprinklers hissed overhead, drenching carpets and suits alike. I grabbed Hannah's wrist. "Server room, 27th floor north wing. Overwrite likely originates there." She nodded, teeth chattering from shock and water. "We need to leave," she protested. "I'll follow, but if explosives are inside server racks?" I stared down. The corridor. No fire, no smoke. Could be a bluff. Could be catastrophic. Devon strode up, soaked cuffs clinging to his shins. "I'll escort remaining directors downstairs." He pressed a keycard against my palm. "Root access, be careful." Then he herded others toward the west stairwell. Noelle caught up, camera still slung around her neck but phone in hand. "That signal piggybacked internal Wi-Fi," she said between breaths. "MAC address matches a device registered to Javier Munoz, Roth's admin, the same signature from the Bellevue server. He's in the building." My mouth tasted of battery acid. Then lockdown was to trap us? I glanced toward the north wing. Doors, Fireproof, magnet locked by default. We find Munoz before he ghosts. Hannah keyed the lock. The door hissed open. The hallway beyond was dim, emergency lighting only. Water from overhead sprinklers formed rivers along the tiles. I could hear distant footsteps, rapid, echoing, someone running. We advanced, shoes squeaking. Server room ahead. Frosted door. Small keypad. I swiped Devon's card, the latch clicked. A wall of cold air hit. The chilled data center. Rows of racks blinked with Christmas light LEDs. And there, crouched at the far cabinet, a man in a dark parka fumbled with a laptop tethered via Ethernet. "Javier!" I shouted. He froze, turned, fear morphing into defiance. "You shouldn't be here," he said, accent rolling like gravel. Left hand hovered near a small black box with a blinking red diode. Looked suspiciously like a remote detonator. Noelle raised her camera, not to film, but to blind him with the flash. The strobe burst. Javier flinched. Hannah lunged, rugby level. Tackle that knocked him sideways. The detonator skittered across the floor toward a drain grate. I pounced, slapping my palm over the device. Thumb hovered the single red button. One mistake could incinerate the floor. Javier struggled under Hannah's knee, cursing. Noelle's camera strap whipped around his wrists as improvised restraint. I scanned the detonator. No screen, just LED. Hard to tell if armed. I powered my phone's flashlight. Behind Javier, wires snaked from a rack to a half-open panel in the floor. A slim thermite canister lodged against structural beam. "Deactivate?" Hannah asked, panting. I swallowed. "Thermite isn't explosive, it's incendiary. Detonator likely triggers electric ignition strip." I pressed nails to the casing seam and popped it open. 2 AA batteries, copper contact wired to a transmitter. I yanked the batteries free. LED died. "Call building security," Noelle hissed. I fumbled phone out, water slippery, dialed 911. While we waited, sirens wailing below, Javier hissed at me. "Roth will bury you." His eyes burned with fanatic zeal I recognized from headlines about corporate henchmen loyal to paychecks bigger than their consciences. "Maybe," I said, chest heaving. "But you just lit the fuse on your own career." SPD arrived, securing Javier, sweeping the server room for additional devices. They found none. Munoz had operated alone. His plan was simple: spook investors with threat of immolation, drive them toward Roth's terms when panic subsided. But he hadn't counted on employees still in the building triggering evacuation before damage done. Devon, soaked and white-faced, re-entered as officers led Javier away. His first sentence: "The vote's postponed until legal clears, but your terms stand." He squeezed my shoulder. "You saved lives." I inhaled damp, chilled air. Every muscle trembled, but adrenaline kept me upright. Hannah's braid dripped water onto her blazer. Noelle's flashcard filled with blurred images of chaos. Elliot, interrogated by FBI, was unreachable. Zone 957. Building reopened floor by floor. Media vans choked the street outside. I found a quiet conference room to dry off and gather my composure. Noelle handed me a towel and energy bar. She checked. Phone updates, then glanced up. "Here comes damage control." She passed me her phone. Roth had released a statement from Argentina denying involvement, calling the attack an unfortunate misrepresentation, and praising Revolve's innovative spirit. The gall. I drafted a reply on Brixton letterhead, legally vetted thanks to Hannah's comms team. "We cooperate fully with federal investigators. Our commitment to transparency remains unwavering. We condemn any attempts to undermine ethical entrepreneurship." Send. My own phone buzzed, unknown number but local. I answered, half expecting more threats. "This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story." The recorded snippet played once, then silence. I stared, pulse skipping. The voice modulator again, repurposing my own subscription line as mockery. Except this time, the call trace would route to a phone confiscated moments ago, evidence of Munoz's involvement. He was taunting us even in cuffs. 11:30. The FBI debriefed us. Munoz confessed Roth had promised him a C-suite role in a shell company if Revolve's valuation tanked, letting Roth buy in cheap. Simon had been lured with similar promises. Elliot's data dump provided smoking gun emails, Slack exchanges, and wired payment records. The Bureau prepared extradition request for Roth. While agents typed statements, Elliot walked in, face pale but eyes bright. He crossed the room towards me. They cleared me. He exhaled. They want me as witness, not suspect. I studied him. He looked smaller without the aura of invincible confidence. That once defined him. Good, I said quietly. He nodded. Adrienne, I know I can't erase what I did at brunch, but I want to rebuild trust, no matter how long it takes. His voice cracked. I'll withdraw from any board consideration to eliminate conflict. I'll support you behind the scenes, only if you want me to. In that moment, I felt an ache deep inside. Grief for the marriage we'd had, hope for what it might become, fear of being hurt again. I placed a hand on his. We'll discuss us later. Right now, Revolve needs full focus. He squeezed once, acceptance in his eyes. 13, why? Devin called an emergency virtual session with the full board. This time, no slides, just a straightforward agenda. Approve seed funding or risk losing first mover advantage to competitors. With Roth exposed, hesitation melted. The vote, unanimous yes. Applause crackled through speakers. I felt it resonate in my bones. Devin concluded, funding transfers this afternoon. Let's catalyze the future. Screen went dark. I slumped in the chair, relief, exhaustion, jubilation in equal measure. The journey wasn't done. It had only begun. But the ember I'd carried for 6 years now blazed. As I gathered my bags, Noelle burst in, cheeks flushed. You're trending. Revolverizing. She showed me a live feed, thousands of tweets praising circular fashion, condemning sabotage, celebrating a woman who fought back. Hannah entered next, holding a sheaf of contracts. Legals ready for your signature, prosperity clause, diversity hiring incentives, supply chain audit framework, authorized as drafted. She paused. One more thing. Brixton wants to host a public launch event next month. Full media coverage. I blinked, heart soaring. Let's do it. 15:30. Renton warehouse, now roped off by caution tape. Buzzed with repair crews assessing structural damage. Sandra walked me through charred corridors, pointing at scorched beams, melted conveyor segments. We'll rebuild, she said. Insurance covers replacement. Brixton's investment accelerates upgrades. I nodded, envisioning gleaming new refurb, stations, solar panels on the roof, apprentices learning textile repair. Hope tasted like clean rainwater. My phone chimed. Email from Devin. See attached docket for advisory board nominees. I opened it. Names I respected. Hannah Shi, Dr. Marisol Tang, circular economy economist, and, surprise, Noelle Reyes. Tears pricked my eyes. As I typed acceptance, a commotion erupted outside. The front gate clanged, voices raised. I stepped out to see a sleek black SUV idling. The driver's door opened and a man in a tailored navy suit emerged. Tall, salt and pepper hair glinting under afternoon sun. Clyde Roth. But Roth was supposed to be in Argentina. He walked toward the gate, calm as a man entering a golf club. Despite uniformed officers approaching with rifles shouldered, Roth raised his hands, a smirk curling. No need for theatrics, he called. I'm here to surrender, on one condition. His gaze fixed on me. I folded arms, chin high. You don't dictate conditions anymore. But curiosity hooked me. Roth's voice carried across the yard. I will plead guilty and cooperate, but only if Revolve accepts a settlement. I provide $10 million in restitution and sign over proprietary waste tracking patents. He paused, letting the bait dangle. In exchange for a non-disparagement. Clause and advisory capacity post-sentencing. Gasps from crew, Sandra swore under her breath. Officers looked to me, unsure if they should intervene or wait. I stepped forward until only the chain link separated us. Why would I let a criminal inside my company? He smiled, shark-like. Because the alternative is years of court battles. Over sabotage damages your startup can't afford, even with Brixton's seed. My confession could complicate your funding round. Investors shy from protracted litigation. Take my plea, take my patents, and turn me into a cautionary tale under your brand. He slipped a folded document through the fence. Legal draft, signature lines blank. Tick-tock, Ms. Hollis. Opportunity sometimes comes wearing horns. As officers cuffed him, he never stopped smiling. I stared at the document, mind spinning. 10 million could scale Revolve globally overnight, but the stain of Roth's name might tether us to infamy. Accepting meant dancing with the devil. Refusing might cripple cash flow. Noelle whispered, "What now?" My pulse thrummed a war drum. Wind rattled charred metal overhead, like destiny demanding decision. I inhaled, feeling the weight of every stitch, every burned thread, every investor's gaze. I opened the document, eyes scanning until words blurred, while the afternoon light angled like a sword across the yard, and I had to choose. Redemption on compromised terms, or a slower, purer path fueled by conviction. Loan. The gate clanged shut behind the departing SUV, and the future waited, breathless, for my next move. The gate's echo still vibrated through my ribs as I stared at Clyde Roth's printed proposal, ink already puckering slightly from the persistent mist that drifted across the Renton yard. $10 million and 3 patents sat behind this neat serif font, alongside clauses thick with legal ballast, non-disparagement, advisory capacity post-sentencing, first refusal rights on any future fundraising. It was a gilded cage, a cage made of carbon fiber and dollar signs, but a cage nonetheless. I ran my thumb along the paper's edge until a bead of blood surfaced. The sting felt purifying. Somewhere behind me, a generator coughed, the repair crew's welding torches flaring blue-white inside the ruin. That light reminded me of Revolve's first mood board. Circles of denim, indigo gradients, a vision of renewal. Roth's offer promised acceleration, but at the cost of letting the fox guard the henhouse he had already set ablaze. Sandra appeared at my elbow, soot still streaking her cheek despite 3 showers. "If you sign with him," she said softly, "he'll own your narrative forever." I folded the pages, slipping them into my tote. "Then I won't." Her relief was a visible loosening of shoulders. Under the hum of welders, we shared a moment of silent agreement. Revolve would walk the harder road. That decision was the first domino. Within an hour, I was on a video call with Brixton's legal team and our newly minted advisory trio, Hannah, Dr. Tang, and Noelle, laying out immediate steps. Publicly reject Roth's settlement and reaffirm cooperation with prosecutors. Create a litigation reserve escrow from the seed round, $500,000, to cover court costs and potential countersuits. Launch a transparent crowdfunding campaign inviting the public to own a stitch of the first production. Line, trading early access and lifetime repair credits for micro-investments. Accelerate Tacoma's label reprint to 4 days by adding a second shift. Move the public launch venue from Brixton's atrium to the Renton yard itself. Fire scars. And all, turning destruction into decor. By dusk, the press release was ready. Revolve declines restitution offer from indicted VC Clyde Roth, chooses community-funded expansion instead. We hit send. Within minutes, The headline vaulted across business channels, side by side with footage of Roth entering federal custody in cuffs. The crowdfunding page went live 3 hours later. We set an audacious goal: 2 million in 30 days. The progress bar bloomed green segments so fast the site's caching plugin sputtered. Tweets poured in. Finally, someone telling Vulture Capital to take a hike. Put my paycheck where my closet is. Even a few celebrities reposted: an R&B singer, a sitcom star known for eco-advocacy. By midnight, we'd crossed 400K. But Roth's tentacles were long. Thursday morning, an email from the U.S. Patent Office landed in my inbox. Notice of third-party pre-issuance submission. Application 17882, Changin 94. Dynamic garment traceability via embedded NFC and blockchain. Submission attached. A 200-page dossier filed by a shell corporation citing obscure prior art that, if accepted, could stall our patent for 2 years. Shell Corp address, Cayman Islands. Registered agent, one of Roth's portfolio attorneys. I forwarded the notice to our IP counsel with a message that ended in 4 unpublishable words. They replied, "We'll draft rebuttal, but expect USPTO delay." Delay was oxygen to competitors. Fast fashion Goliaths could copy our model before we ever shipped a box. I refused to let Roth's shadow dictate our pace. An hour later, I was in the Renton break room, converted to war room, mapping contingencies with the advisory board. Dr. Tang traced a curve on the whiteboard. If we lean on trade secret protection instead of waiting for patent issuance, we can still deploy. Keep the algorithm closed source. Publish only the sustainability score. Hannah noted, investors may balk without IP moat, but community investors won't. And Brixton's brand loves David versus Goliath. Noelle clicked her pen. We shift narrative. Open process, closed algorithm. Everyone sees the lifecycle data, but can't replicate mechanics. I nodded. Do it. Meanwhile, Elliot immersed himself in damage control with astonishing fervor, arranging 24/7 security patrols, offering pro bono data forensics to prosecutors, and quietly refunding Simon's parents the legal fees they had fronted. Watching him, I felt a tightness ease in my chest, though not fully. Trust repairs like bone. It calcifies slowly, leaving an ache when weather changes. Late Friday, after 12 coffee-fueled hours of spreadsheets, he asked if I'd join him at Alki Beach for a breather. The sky was a smear of pink and slate. Gulls banking on salt wind. We walked the shoreline, shoes in hand. I still replay that brunch, he admitted, toes digging into cold sand. Every laugh feels like I'm hearing it in Dolby Surround. I kicked a shell fragment. It wasn't just the laugh, Elliot. It was you using me as a punchline to elevate yourself. You enjoyed the room turning against me. He winced. I was terrified they'd invest in you and realize you outshone me. It was insecurity, plain and ugly. Honesty, at last. I tasted it like bittersweet chocolate. Insecurity made you join the board meeting, too. He nodded. Maybe still trying. To prove I could be valuable to you. Prove it by being valuable to the world, I said, voice gentler than I expected. Whether we make it as husband and wife is secondary. The tide lapped our ankles, cold enough to shock. He squeezed my hand once, then let go. An acceptance. Of terms unsaid. The next week blurred. Welders replacing beams, techs installing optical scanners, Tacoma delivering fresh NFC tags by midnight courier. Crowdfunding crossed $1 million. We hired 30 displaced garment workers from a recently shuttered factory, and their arrival brought fresh energy. Songs in Spanish echoed off steel walls as they practiced repair stitching. But every ascent finds turbulence. Monday dawn brought a cease and desist from a multinational retailer claiming our marketing implied their products were destined for landfill. Their lawyers demanded retraction and damages. Another, Roth Ripple, he'd previously chaired their board. Our response, a lengthy PDF with footnotes, politely inviting them to tour our facility and witness salvage firsthand. Public backlash landed on them within hours. They withdrew. Still, by Wednesday, I felt as though I'd spent a month sprinting uphill while swatting hornets. I dozed for 90 minutes in a supply closet before a reporter's call jolted me awake. She asked about rumors of explosive-detecting drones at the upcoming launch event. The rumor was new to me. I traced its source. Anonymous Reddit thread seeded by a user named A Prometheus Returns. FBI traced the IP, a motel 2 miles from the federal courthouse where Roth awaited indictment, likely a paid proxy. The message was clear. Intimidation still simmered. We doubled security, installed drone jamming mesh over the yard, and pivoted. Launch event decor from celebratory banners to raw Phoenix Rising aesthetic. Burn-marked beams repurposed as sculptures around the catwalk. Launch day arrived beneath a flawless blue sky. Pilgrim clouds drifted like stray thoughts. Journalists, influencers, and 3,000 crowdfunding backers queued outside the gates, passes laminated with plantable seed paper. I wore a tailored jumpsuit cut from upcycled canvas, its seams embroidered with the Revolve infinity arrow. The show unfurled like a tapestry. Models, all local workers and volunteers, glided over a runway stitched across the repaired conveyor. Each garment carried a QR code guests could scan in real time, projecting provenance onto a jumbotron. This jacket began as denim salvaged from a landfill in Arizona. It has traveled 734 miles, used 82 liters of water, and paid 4 artisans. A living wage. Applause thundered. Tears shimmered on faces. My heart felt too large for my rib cage. As the final look, a reversible trench coat of waxed hemp, took its bow, I stepped to the mic. The crowd quieted. I was told slow fashion shouldn't feel slow, I began, voice steady. But rebuilding after sabotage taught me speed is irrelevant if purpose is clear. Today you are part of a loop. Every time you choose repair over disposal, the loop tightens until nothing, no thread, no dream, is wasted. Cheers rose, sustained and mighty. A drone camera swooped overhead, feeding 4K to livestream. For a beat, I believed nothing could tarnish this moment. Then my watch buzzed. A priority alert from the supply chain dashboard. Shipment 0328R, customs hold, biohazard flag. I tapped the notification. A photo loaded. U.S. Customs inspectors in hazmat suits surrounding containers of reclaimed cotton. Hazard? Our cotton partner used standard industrial detergent. Nothing toxic. I excused myself, slipping behind the stage curtain where Hannah monitored logistics on a laptop. Her face was ash pale. Port of Seattle flagged our inbound cotton for abnormal mold spores and chemical residue, she said. They're quarantining the entire import. That's half our first subscription cycle, I whispered. She pointed to a zoomed image. Spray-painted on one container, a red infinity arrow, the Revolve mark, crossed out by an X. Beside it, the word rot. My shoulders went numb. We'd tested those bales pre-shipment. Someone had doctored them en route or tampered with. Inspection results. Hannah's phone lit. Customs just received an anonymous tip claiming Revolve cotton carries a novel fungus harmful to ecosystems. Roth was in custody. His network clearly was not. I straightened, pulse a war drum. We need independent lab tests and a public statement within the hour. No trace of defensiveness, only data. Outside, crowd chants swelled. Revolve, revolve. The juxtaposition felt surreal. Adoration on one side, sabotage on the other. Sandra joined us, wiping grease from her forearms. If raw cotton's out, we can pivot to stock we already have. Not enough, Hannah replied. What about digital wardrobe tokens only? Noelle suggested, joining. Delivering garments later once cleared? Gamify patience. I shook my head. It erodes trust if we delay. My phone rang. International. Number. I answered. A distorted voice oozed through. Round and round the loop we go, mold in cotton, fungus grows, sign the patents, end the woe. Click. My blood chilled. Whoever this was had resources beyond Roth. They wanted the patents surrendered. An alarm cut the air. Security breach at the main gate. Crowd screams. I raced out. A plume of pink powder erupted near the runway, dispersing in the breeze. People coughed, eyes watering. Someone had lobbed dye bombs over the fence. Security tackled a figure in a hoodie. The plastic tub he carried rolled, spilling more powder that dusted the pavement magenta. I seized the mic, voice booming through feedback. Everyone please move toward the west exit. Free cleanup stations are being set up immediately. Follow. Staff in yellow vests. Years of crisis comms training surfaced. Calm commands sluiced panic from the air. As guests streamed out, I knelt to test the powder. Odorless, fine as cornstarch. I prayed it was benign. Noelle's camera captured the chaos. Hannah called hazmat. Dr. Tang verified local hospitals. Within 20 minutes, the site was cleared. No one reported serious symptoms, just stained clothes and sinus irritation. Still, images of magenta-coated guests flooded social media with the hashtag #RDiedDown. Evening news anchors would feast. But there was an unexpected side effect. People rallied harder, posting defiant selfies captioned, "Sabotage won't stop the loop." Crowdfunding ticked upward. $1.6 million. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, exhaustion wrapped around my spine like barbed wire. Midnight found me alone atop the Renton roof, sitting on a crumpled fire blanket. Lights of the city shimmered across Lake Washington. Elliot climbed the maintenance ladder, carrying 2 mugs of chamomile. He handed one to me, then sat, legs dangling over the edge. "Port Lab's rush tests show 0 pathogens," he said softly. "Hold should lift by dawn." Relief fizzed, but I was too numb to celebrate. "Someone will try again." "Yes," he admitted, "but each time, your community grows." Sabotage scales your story faster than any ad. I laughed weakly. I'd prefer billboard ads to drone-dropped powder. We sipped tea in silence. The moon painted silver lines over his profile. After a while, he spoke. "FBI thinks some of Roth's allies operate independently. People with stakes in fast fashion supply chains terrified of your model. They'll escalate." I set the mug down. "Then we escalate transparency. Full third-party audits live-streamed. Let the world witness every bail, every stitch." He nodded. "I'll set it up." A pause. "And Adrian, I'm filing for indefinite leave from Hollis Roth. My partnership buyout can fund your litigation reserve. Consider it restitution." I felt a tremor of gratitude and caution. "We'll discuss terms, but thank you." Thunder rumbled somewhere beyond the Cascades. Elliot slipped an arm around my shoulders. This time I didn't pull away. For that moment, we were 2 battle-weary souls watching storm clouds gather, sharing the fragile warmth of a single blanket. We didn't sleep. Dawn came violet, then gold. The customs hold lifted, cotton released. Died down trended into salve, died determined. Influencers turning magenta-stained outfits into viral solidarity. Crowdfunding hit $2 million one day ahead of goal. Victory, though, came laced with foreboding. The sabotage cell, whoever they were, hadn't succeeded, but they hadn't failed far enough to quit. By noon, I sat in Brixton's glass-walled studio for a live interview on national morning television. Ear mic crackled. The host smiled. Perfect veneers through satellite lag. Questions were predictable. Female founder resilience, green fashion future. But the last one pierced deeper. After fires, sabotage, and legal warfare, what scares you most? I didn't hesitate. Complacency, I replied. We fight for circularity like lives depend on it. Because they do. The moment we relax, The old system wins. The host beamed, signing off. Producers pumped fists. I exhaled, but before I could stand, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown burner. Nice segment. Complacency kills. So does silence. Next time it won't be powder. My skin prickled. I showed the message to Hannah. She forwarded to FBI. But deep down, I sensed something shifting. The enemy widening their aperture. I thought of Roth's patents, of billion-dollar empires built on disposability, of cotton fields soaked in pesticides halfway across the globe. We were David with a sling made of traceability and community goodwill. But Goliath wore a Hydra's heads. Back at Renton, Dr. Tang greeted me with a secure folder printout, data from an anonymous whistleblower inside Ocean Gate Logistics, one of the largest shipping brokers for fast fashion. It showed forged import, documents, environmental violations, bribes to port inspectors. At the bottom, a note. You didn't hear this from me. Keep fighting. Leverage. Dynamite for the courtroom. Using it, though, risked retaliation on a scale we hadn't yet tasted. I locked the folder in the safe, a fresh weight settling on my conscience. That night, as rain pattered against corrugated roofs, I walked the production line alone. Machines hummed soft lullabies, newly installed solar lights casting warm halos. I ran fingertips over bolts of denim, smelling faint indigo. I whispered a promise to every future garment. I will not let rot win. But as I turned off the lights, I couldn't shake the feeling we were stepping onto a stage far larger than Seattle. One, where the cost of failure might not be burned warehouses or dye bombs, but something far more intimate. The trust of millions who had gambled hope on us, and the curtain for that act was about to rise. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. Morning light filtered through the warehouse skylights in a dappled mosaic, and for the first time in weeks, I paused to appreciate the hush before machines roared. The repaired Renton line gleamed, fresh conveyor belts, robotic armatures calibrated to millimeter precision, sewing stations stocked with thread spools arranged by Pantone code. Workers chatted over steaming cups of chicory and tea, unaware that in 12 hours, our fledgling empire would face its most existential test yet. Customs had cleared cotton, and containers rolled onto the yard like giant blue dominoes. Each bale was tested, tagged, and logged into the blockchain in real time, our transparency cameras broadcasting the process for supporters to watch via app. The livestream chat scrolled so fast, moderators could barely filter praise from spam. But beneath the applause, ticker ran a darker undercurrent. Anonymous users posting skull emojis, cryptic coordinates, and the phrase, "end the loop." Our security AI flagged them, but digital trolls were Hydra-headed. Cut one account, 3 popped up. Hannah, flipping through shipping manifests on her tablet, murmured, "Engagement metrics up 220%, but so is hate traffic. We may need a community moderator team." I nodded, distracted by the swelling hum in my chest, a restless energy that felt like storm pressure. "We'll allocate funds from the overgoal pool. Let's keep the conversation constructive." At noon, Dr. Tang gathered us in the refurbished office lofts. She projected charts on a reclaimed wood wall. Rising line, rising line, rising line, the triple indicators of crowdfunding momentum, pre-subscription sign-ups, and positive sentiment. But one bar nosedived. Investor confidence index across conventional VC networks. "What's dragging sentiment?" Noel asked, arms folded. "Whisper campaign," Dr. Tang answered. "Someone's feeding analysts claims that Revolve's environmental data is fabricated and that we're a Ponzi clothing club propped by hype." I digested that. They're attacking intangibles, data trust. Elliot, remote via video from a co-working space downtown, leaned into camera. "My ex-partners have resources. They'll bankroll think tank papers smearing your metrics, and if they sway regulators..." A chill pricked my arms. We could weather physical sabotage, but reputational rot was subtler, more insidious. By late afternoon, our legal counsel forwarded a subpoena. The House Subcommittee on Environmental Claims invited me to testify in D.C. in 2 weeks, ostensibly to illuminate circular economy models, but context suggested a grilling. My presence alone would legitimize Revolve. Failure under oath could bury us. I set the letter down, rubbing temples. 2 weeks to assemble ironclad documentation, replicate every metric under third-party lab conditions, and prep for political theater. Sandra burst in, grease-smudged overalls incongruous with the tension. Delivery of new RFID routers stuck on I-405, multi-vehicle collision. Without them, packets drop, cameras lag. A domino effect. No routers, no live stream, no trust. Elliot texted, "I'm near 405. We'll detour and shuttle equipment in." My SUV. I hesitated, then replied, "Go, but send GPS." At 19:07, security feed showed Elliot's Audi backing into the loading dock. Routers intact, no damage. Workers cheered his hustle. Maybe, I thought, redemption sometimes arrives wearing the same suit it aired in. We installed routers, stream stabilized. The community chat pinged hearts. Then, at 19:28, every monitor flickered black. Audio screeched, then cut. In the sudden quiet, my pulse thundered like a bass drum. A single line of text replaced the feed. Hear the rattle, feel the rot. An ASCII graphic beneath, an infinity loop breaking apart. Noelle's fingers flew across her keyboard. They hijacked. RTSP streams by forging certificate keys. That means inside knowledge of our encryption. Only 10 people have that. I forced calm. Roll backup offline cameras. Push feed through cellular modems. She nodded. Minutes later, the live stream resumed, but thousands of viewers had witnessed the hijack. Social media fires ignited. While crisis comms drafted responses, the Port Authority called, "One of our containers, 4119B, was missing. Scanned onto a truck that never exited the gate. GPS tag offline. The cotton? No. Container 4119B held." Prototypes bound for the United Nations Climate Summit display booth, a global stage we secured months ago. My breath caught. Those prototypes embodied Revolve's credibility. 2 years of R&D, artisanal embroidery telling refugee stories. If lost, we'd lose not just product, but symbolism. Hannah traced the manifest. Driver listed as C. Reyes. My mother's last name. Inside joke? Attackers had done their homework. I called FBI contact agent Marquez. Her voice was taut. "We're tracking a stolen cab-over rig heading south on Route 7 toward the rail yards. Could be attempt to smuggle container onto a freight train. Rail yards sprawled labyrinthine. Once containers boarded a train, they could vanish into continental arteries." I imagined prototypes shorn apart, labels stripped, intellectual property reverse-engineered by clandestine studios. Marquez requested my presence to confirm contents if they intercepted. I grabbed my jacket. Elliot insisted on driving. "We can cut travel time," he said. I hesitated but agreed. Trust had to start somewhere. Noelle, eyes fierce, joined. We roared onto I-5 as dusk bled into indigo. Sirens converged ahead, Seattle PD cruisers flanking FBI SUVs. A helicopter's search beam sliced the sky. The stolen truck barreled down the frontage road, sparks flying from a shredded tire. Police deployed spike strips. The rig swerved, steel screaming, then jackknifed, container skidding sideways in a plume of dust. Officers swarmed. Elliot braked hard. We jumped out. Marquez flagged us over. "Driver fled into yards," she said. "But we have the box." Bolt cutters snapped the seal. Door creaked open. Inside, the prototype sat intact. But pinned to the lead mannequin's lapel, a small white envelope addressed in block letters. "I see you, Loop Queen." Hand shaking, I opened it. Inside, a single NFC tag identical to ours, but encoded with a skull emoji. And a memory card. We bagged the evidence. At FBI van, text decrypted the card. Contents: a video file. Static, then masked voice. Innovation blooms where rot decays. Your loop ends in 72 hours, unless you stand on the Capitol steps and renounce your claim. Coordinates flashed. National Mall, Washington, D.C., countdown overlay, 72. My temples pounded. Renounce? Marquez muttered. They want public capitulation. I stared at the ticking numbers. The House hearing was in 336 hours. 2 weeks. Their threat aligned with something sooner. My phone pinged news alert. Global Fast Fashion Summit rescheduled to 72 hours from now due to hurricane. Summit's keynote sponsor? One of Roth's previous allies. Noel exhaled. They'll sabotage the summit or your reputation, depending how you choose. The video ended with a flash of coordinates. Latitude pointed not to the Capitol building, but to a warehouse in Virginia. Property owned by a shell. Corp tied to international waste haulers. Marquez speculated chemical threat. She proposed evacuation. But first, she said, we need proof linking them to prior attacks. I knew what that meant. I needed to fly east, confront the Hydra on its turf, and either stake the heart or witness the summit burn. Elliot. Jaw. Set said, I'm coming. I looked from him to Noel, to Hannah. Their faces mirrored resolve. The stakes had shifted from startup survival to public safety, from fashion to national security. And the clock ticked relentless. We returned to Renton at 02 Gawar, container escorted by FBI. Workers, eyes red with fatigue, applauded as prototypes rolled back into the warehouse. I climbed onto a pallet, addressing them. I know you're scared, I said. So am I. But every threat proves we matter. We'll keep sewing, mending, shipping, because rot thrives on silence, and we refuse to be quiet. Cheering erupted, tired but fierce. After they dispersed, I sat in the design studio blinking away exhaustion. Agent Marquez sent flight details, red-eye to D.C. She'd coordinate Joint DHS Task Force at Virginia site. I recorded a 60-second fireside video for supporters. Crisp, honest, admitting sabotage attempts, reaffirming data integrity. Posted. Within minutes, comments poured. Solidarity, prayers, offers to guard warehouses. At 0430, Noel handed me a slim tracker. Hidden body cam, stream to encrypted cloud. If anything goes south, we have record. She then hugged me, tight, unfiltered. For the record, she whispered, this company matters more than any runway. It's a blueprint. I swallowed hard, responding, you're the blueprint. Seat 3A on Alaska 006. I watched city lights fade, feeling small above the Baba quilted glow. Elliot sat beside me, silent, fingers interlaced in his lap. At cruising altitude, he spoke. If we face them, and if something happens, know that my biggest regret isn't brunch or arrogance. It's waiting until fear drove me to value your brilliance. I turned to the window, throat tight. Then fear did something right. Sleep never came. News tickers scrolled across seatback screens. Unrest in Textile Trade Council. Sustainable. Startups face coordinated attacks. We had become symbol and target. Touchdown Dulles, 13:15 EST. Marquez met us with SUVs. Tactical gear rattled in trunk. She briefed. Warehouse intel suggests stockpiling of expired chemical dyes and ammonium nitrate. Could be planning mass contamination stunt at Summit. The suspicion unfurled cold through my gut. We have 58 hours now. We convoyed down I-66 toward a derelict industrial district. Joint teams pre-staged. FBI, DHS, EPA hazmat. The abandoned warehouse loomed, windows boarded like blindfolded eyes. Drones buzzed overhead. Thermal scans showed 3 heat signatures inside. Command authorized breach. Agents advanced. I stood in command van, monitor feeds flickering. They slipped through side door. Shouts, flashbang burst, smoke. 2 suspects down. Third fled rear exit into wooded ravine. 9 units pursued. Inside, camera revealed vats of viscous dye labeled Azo-4, banned carcinogen. Beside them, pallets of discount teas ready for dip dye. Plan. Flood Summit pop-up shops with toxin-laced shirts. Blame revolves circular. Contaminated cotton. Evidence stacked. Shipping documents signed by same Shell Corp as Cayman patents. A conspiracy linking economic sabotage to biohazard terrorism. Marquez radioed, "We need positive ID." Agents uncovered laptop running remote script. On screen, a live video feed of a masked figure speaking, "Too late, Loop Queen, even." If you seize this stash, the message spreads, "Sustainability is a lie." Transmission cut. I pressed palms to monitor. Rage like caustic acid in veins. "We publicize this," I said. "Full transparency. Expose them before they spin it." Within hours, FBI held press conference, seized chemicals, arrest warrants, ties to Shadow Network. My statement played coast to coast, equal parts condemnation and rallying cry. But the Hydra still writhed. At 22:47, as I tried to unwind in Hotel War Room, my phone buzzed with a message from an internal Slack bot I didn't recognize. "Close the loop or watch it close on you." Attached, live security footage of the Renton line, time-stamped 5 minutes prior. Unknown figure planting something beneath conveyor. Heart plummeted. Time difference, Seattle 2 hours behind. Potential device planting now. I FaceTimed Sandra. She answered amid machinery hum, headphones on. I shouted to evacuate. She complied, pulling fire alarm. Workers spilled into parking lot, feed still live. Figure finished planting, turned to camera, wore a reflective mask that mirrored the lens. They lifted a finger to lips, then vanished into shadows. Hazmat previously swept the line. New breach meant insider or clever infiltration. Local SWAT entered, found device, a complex mechanical ratchet wired to conveyor power. Bomb squad disabled. Inside casing, not explosive, but container of sulfuric acid rigged to rupture under load, shredding garments, spewing fumes. Could ruin first subscription batch and injure staff. The failure of dye bomb, chemical plot, and acid ratchet proved escalation. They'd keep mutating until something stuck. I stood by hotel window overlooking Potomac, fists trembling. Fear knocked. But fury answered. "When you want to burn my dream, I plant forests." I wrote in my notes, app. Elliot, eyes shadowed, approached. "The Hydra's losing heads faster than it can grow them. Expose each one and soon it bleeds out." "Or we bleed." "Out," I replied. "Court cases, security costs, mental wear." He set a hand on my notebook. "Then we cut at the neck, trace money flow, follow Cayman shells to final source." Dawn, 46 hours remaining. Noel via encrypted call said, "We pulled Panama. Papers cross-refs, Shell Corp ties to Orifitex, conglomerate owning 8 fast fashion brands. Orifitex market cap, $18 billion. CEO Vincent Lior, a titan known for crushing eco-startups through price wars. FBI lacked jurisdiction. To subpoena foreign bank flows quickly. Time ticking." Dr. Tang suggested weaponizing the court of public opinion. Release partial findings, force Orifitex to answer. Hannah warned, "Defamation suits could freeze our assets." I inhaled. "So we leak not accusation, but questions. We typed it a drafted open letter. Who profits from sabotage of circular fashion?" Cited shell corporations. Asked shareholders of Orifitex to investigate their board. Posted to Medium. Syndicated to LinkedIn. Shares exploded, investor forums buzzing. Orifitech's PR responded denouncing baseless insinuations. Their stock dipped 3% by lunch. Time 28 hours. Summit stage construction underway in D.C. I rehearsed my keynote, rewritten overnight, to include transparency footage. My voice shook but steadied on third run-through. Then my phone rang, unlisted. I answered expecting threats. Instead, "Ms. Hollis, this is Grace Tomlin, Senior VP at Orifitex. We need to talk." "In War Room." I put her on speaker. Grace sounded tired. "I've seen internal reports. Leor greenlit Operation Rot to undermine you. Some of us opposed but were overridden." She offered evidence dump in exchange for whistleblower immunity. Marquez confirmed program. Deal arranged. Files arrived. Budgets for clandestine sabotage, payments to Roth, diagrams of dye bombs, acid ratchets. Smoking gun, FBI prepped warrants, press scramble. Hours left. I should have felt vindicated, but anxiety gnawed. Hydra cornered is Hydra desperate. Time 12 hours. Pre-summit gala at Smithsonian Courtyard. Elliot accompanied me in midnight blue. Suit. Cameras flashed. Supporters waved infinity banners. Inside, diplomats sipped champagne under whale skeleton. I networked, heart half present. Noelle texted, "All quiet in Seattle. Sleep a bit." I smiled for first time. Then security chief strode over, whispering, "Suspicious package found under main summit podium. Evac underway." Glass shattered. Panic. Crowd rushed. FedEx box lay beneath podium, blinking LED. Bomb squad cleared hall, Elliot shielding me with his body. Device disarmed. Harmless. Just a voice recorder that looped same distorted phrase. Loop ends now. But lodged inside foam padding, a USB drive. Bomb tech handed it to DHS. They scanned. A 3D blueprint of Renton line with red X's on structural joints. A timetable, 0005. The Hydra planned simultaneous structural sabotage at launch of first. Shipment. 5 minutes after we flipped the switch next week. We couldn't guard every beam. Unless, my mind lit. We go earlier. Shipments would depart in 36 hours, not next week. Secrecy, blitz load, roll before sabotage window. Hannah arranged trucks. Workers roused, shipping labels printed like ticker tape. Crowdfunding updated. Surprise, your revolve boxes leave tomorrow. Cheers online. An hour's left. I rehearsed keynote in backup venue, a smaller hall armored by DHS. Evidence against Orifitex ready for reveal. Elliot watched from wings. "You're about to declare war on an empire." I met his eyes. "Empires fall." He brushed hair from my cheek, whispering, "So do rebels. Stay safe." I stepped onto stage. Lights blazed, cameras rolled live worldwide. I opened with a scrap of burned denim telling our origin. Then I flicked slide. Vats of AZO4. Orifitex logo overlay. Gasps. I narrated sabotage's timeline, displayed whistleblower docs, SWAT footage. The hall vibrated with anger, then applause. I closed. "True sustainability survives attack because it belongs to everyone. We are the loop." Standing ovation thundered. As I exited, Marquez approached, brow furrowed. "We lost visual on Vincent Leor. He left gala midway, suspect flight to Vancouver, private jet call sign ORX-1. I sighed. Hydra head escaping. Marquez's phone buzzed. She paled. "Seattle Port Authority? Fire aboard container ship. Carrying your first batch. Crew abandoning." My knees buckled. Elliot steadied me as Marquez read details. "Engine room blaze near Pier 47. Fire crew en route. My cotton, my jackets, my subscribers' trust. All at stake." I whispered, "Live stream. The fire. Show them truth." Noelle, already remote, switched drone feed to app. Flames licked night sky. Chat erupted. Heartbreak, anger, resolve. I stared at Inferno pixels. We pivot, I said, voice trembling but fierce. We salvage what we can. Stitch ashes if needed. But the loop will not break. Noelle texted, "Fireboats contain blaze. Damage unknown." I exhaled, watching smoke curl upward on screen like a question mark. The Hydra had scorched our first launch, yet our story burned brighter. But as dawn's first light crept across the Capitol dome, I knew one more part of this. Saga remained, the moment where we would either weave triumph from cinders or watch the loop unravel for good, and the clock still ticked. Flames curled like orange petals from the ship's starboard vents, their reflections rippling across Seattle's midnight harbor. I watched the live stream feed on Noelle's tablet, seated in the back of the DHS command truck outside the Smithsonian. Satin, gown streaked with dust, pulse thrumming in my ears. Fireboats blasted arcs of water that glittered in spotlight beams, yet the blaze gnawed stubbornly at the steel hull that carried Revolve's first shipment. A voice crackled over the truck's radio, Captain Shimizu of the fireboat. Rainbreaker. Engine room fire contained to compartment B2. We're venting heat. Cargo deck still secure, but smoke infiltration likely. Smoke, I thought. Cotton loved it, like a sponge loves water. If the bales absorbed soot, they'd carry the stench into every subscriber's closet. But soot could be cleaned, char could not. I exhaled a tremulous breath. Alive beneath the weight of 100,000 eyes watching our fate in real time, Agent Marquez caught my gaze. "We have divers and hazmat standing by. You focus on the Senate subcommittee tomorrow." Tomorrow? Less than 9 hours away. I pressed fingers to my temples. If that shipment sinks, tomorrow doesn't matter. Elliot squeezed my shoulder from behind. His palm was warm and steady. The anchor I once feared was an anvil. "Captain Shimizu needs a layout of the cargo grid," he said. "We've got it." He held up a thumb drive. Noelle had exported the digital twin models an hour ago. "Let's go," I decided. 2 hours later, the Coast Guard cutter, Delphinus, cut through black water, escorting us to Pier 47. Night smelled of diesel and salt. The wharf pulsed with red strobes and shouts. Fireboats doused the freighter's hissing wounds, steam drifting like ghostly curtains. I boarded via rattling gangway, heart hammering. Inside the cargo deck, the air was a sauna of smoke and chemical tang from extinguishing foam. Sandra, evacuated from Renton only hours earlier, had beaten me aboard. She wore a high-vis coat 2 sizes too big and wielded a thermal camera. "Compartment C holds your garments," she reported, voice muffled by respirator. "Bulkhead temperature stable at 38 Celsius. If we vent and deploy carbon filters, within 90 minutes, fabric integrity survives." I nodded, mind already drafting the contingency plan. Isolate bales, transfer to refrigerated trucks, ozone treatment tunnels. Costly, but salvageable. Deckhands loosed massive clasps. The hatch groaned open. Smoke belched. My lungs protested through filtration mask. But there, stacked floor to ceiling like pale monoliths, were cotton bales, still wrapped in their water-resistant polymer. My knees weakened with relief. We formed a chain, dock workers, firefighters, volunteers from our own staff, to offload the bales onto forklifts. Each shrink-wrapped cube bore a QR sticker. I scanned the first, green. The app stamped viable. Cheers broke out, echoing through steel corridors. By dawn's lavender blur, the last bale rolled into a chilled warehouse on Terminal Way. I stood amid mountains of cotton and let tears track soot on my cheeks. The first link of our supply loop had survived immolation, so perhaps would we? 36 minutes of shower and espresso later, I strode into the Rayburn House office building, hair still damp, memory flashcards tucked behind my blazer lapel. The corridor smelled of coffee and polished history. Cameras eyed me from alcoves like curious pigeons. The hearing room buzzed, aides stacking binders, representatives murmuring over microphones, eco-activists waving placards outside glass doors. At the witness table, placard read, Mess. Adrienne Hollis, founder and CEO, Revolve Inc. My lungs tightened, both in pride and dread. Across the aisle sat Vincent Lior, white hair immaculate, bespoke suit unrumpled despite an overnight flight, from Vancouver. He'd managed bail on price-fixing charges, but sabotage accusations still coiled around him like barbed wire. His lips curled in a faint smile that never reached his ice-chip eyes. Behind him, rows of Orifitex lobbyists whispered, into phones. At my back, I felt my team's presence. Noelle with 2 laptops, Dr. Tang armed with economic charts, Hannah flipping through supply chain audit binders, Elliot, now official consultant pro bono, quietly calm. Gavel banged. The chairwoman, Representative Coulter, began. This subcommittee convenes to examine allegations of industrial sabotage and greenwashing within the textile sector. Witnesses, Ms. Hollis, Mr. Lior, and EPA Acting Director Singh. I raised my right hand, oath heavy on tongue. To tell the truth, whole truth. My prepared statement sat before me, but I barely glanced. When the chairwoman nodded, I spoke from marrow. I recounted the brunch humiliation, Renton fire, dye bombs, toxic vats in Virginia, fire at Harbor, all punctuated by video evidence overhead. Jeff Bezos's big blue mural in the hearing room seemed to lean in, listening. Lior's counsel objected thrice, claiming hearsay. Each time, Marquez's affidavits crushed the protest. When my testimony concluded, even skeptical representatives looked stricken. Then Lior took the stand. He denied knowledge of Operation Rot, blamed rogue employees, and accused Revolve of staging attacks for publicity. Gasps erupted. My jaw tightened. Representative Delgado leaned forward. Mr. Lior, do you recognize this ledger? On the screen flashed a document Grace Tomlin had provided. Orifitex board minutes approving a $12 million competitive intelligence budget coded to shell accounts. Lior paled. Delgado pressed. Is that your signature? Silence stretched, like tensioned cloth. Finally, Lior muttered, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Cheers and jeers mingled. By recess, pundits tweeted blow by blow. Hashtags, loop trial, and Don fast fash crash trended. Reporters chased me down hallways. I offered one sentence. Transparency stitches stronger fabric. Back in Seattle, shipping resumed under police escort. The smoke-kissed cotton needed less cleaning than feared. Subscribers received push alerts. Your Revolve box is en route, bearing scars and stories. Pictures of arrival unboxings flooded Instagram. Customers inhaling fabric steamed with cedar oil, reading tags tracking each. Garments resurrection story. Revenue projections spiked. We hired 50 more repair artisans. But with success came fresh vulnerabilities. Scalpers listing limited edition Revolve pieces for triple price, threatening ethos of accessibility. We drafted reseller policies, integrated serial verification, and amid the whirlwind, I confronted something more personal than sabotage, my marriage. Evening after I returned from D.C., Elliot waited in our living room, suitcase by couch. I'm checking into an extended stay downtown, he began. I want you to have space. I love you enough to risk losing you. He offered a slim envelope. Finalized partnership exit and a personal investment pledge. No strings. Whatever we become next, let it be honest. Tears blurred edges of furniture. I nodded, speechless. He kissed my knuckles, a gesture tender and uncertain, then left. I curled on the crimson dress I once wore to brunch, now laundered free of shame, and breathed grief and relief in equal measure. Weeks stretched. Trials loomed for Roth, Lior, Munoz. Our legal team sewed subpoenas into airtight briefs. Meanwhile, Revolve scaled, a second refurb hub in Austin, a microfactory pilot in Detroit, curriculum with community colleges teaching clothing repair. The crowdfunding platform evolved into a cooperative equity pool. Subscribers could convert credits into microshares, voting on seasonal capsule themes. Democracy woven into denim, but hydras regenerate. Anonymous reports surfaced of copycat services claiming circularity, yet shipping garments to incinerators overseas. We launched Loop Watch, a public database verifying chain of custody. Data nerds flocked. Journalists used it. Policymakers cited it. Competition became collaboration by transparency force. One crisp October morning, a year after Renton burned, I stood outside a refurbished brick building in Lahore, Pakistan, city of my mother's childhood. The sign above read, Revolve South Asia Hub. Inside, rows of tailors, men and women, stitched. Second life garments from donated fabrics. Samir Khan, our local project manager, with his beloved 2000s shirts, greeted me with tea. Maya Ali, now lead muralist, painted infinity arrows on corridor walls. I smiled, recalling how far we'd traveled from brunch humiliation to global footprint. Here, in a country once buried under fast fashion detritus, we were closing loops at a sunset. I video called Noel, Hannah, Dr. Tang. They toasted with sparkling water from Seattle rooftop. Noel teased, "Next stop, Mars Upcycle Factory." I laughed, camera catching Lahore's pink sky. One loop at a time. 6 months. Later, Roth accepted a plea deal, 10 years federal, forfeiture of assets to an environmental restitution fund feeding circular startups. Lior's trial dragged on, but Orifitec's shareholders ousted him and pledged $2 billion to circular investment to salvage reputation. The Hydra was not slain, yet its heads now wore muzzles of public scrutiny. On the anniversary of our first shipment, we hosted the Phoenix Gala at Renton. Guests walked a runway lined with charred beams transformed into sculpture. I delivered a short speech. Sometimes the fire that threatens to consume us is the kiln that tempers our steel. My voice echoed where flames once raged. Afterward, I stole a quiet moment on the roof. Seattle's lights shimmered. Footsteps approached. Elliot joined, hands tucked into coat pockets. "I read your op-ed," he said. "My essay on rebuilding trust in both business and love, published that morning." "You called love a loop, too." I glanced at him. "Loops require intentional upkeep, repair, not replacement." He offered a cautious smile. I didn't know yet if our loop would hold, but beneath the ambiguity lay a choice, one we would make daily, like committing to mend a sleeve instead of buying a new shirt. Months passed. Subcommittee drafted the Circular Economy Act, allocating tax breaks to refurb facilities. Revolve prototyped smart thread that disassembles at set heat thresholds for easier recycling. Our community surpassed 1 million members. One evening, I returned to my apartment, now mine alone, to find a small package addressed in Elliot's handwriting. Inside, my original Revolve deck, edges coffee-stained from countless revisions, and a note. "Never forget the ember became a bonfire." I pressed the deck to my chest, heartbeat overlapping memory. The laugh that once shamed me had become a catalyst. The ashes had fertilized a forest. The day the Circular Economy Act passed, I stood on the Capitol steps again, this time flanked by Hannah and Dr. Tang, both in upcycled power suits. Reporters asked if we'd sell to a conglomerate. I answered, "We'd rather teach them to sew." Flashbulbs popped. Somewhere in the crowd, viewers wore Revolve patches on backpacks. The loop was visible, tangible, pulsing alive. That night, I broadcast a live stream from Renton, walking viewers through every station, cotton sorting, dyeing with botanical pigments, AI-assisted mending. Cameras lingered on workers' smiling faces, on tags printing stories in 20 languages. I concluded, loops aren't perfect circles, they're spirals, ascending. Each turn rises on the last. Chat exploded with heart emojis. I locked the facility gates under a harvest moon, inhaled indigo-scented air, whispered a prayer to the loom of the universe. May every broken thread find its knot. And I believed, fiercely, unequivocally, that no fire, no rotocrat, no Hydra-headed empire could snuff a community burning for change. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.